Welcome to another episode of the Instant Impact Podcast. Oh my gosh, I have just probably one of the most important conversations I've ever had on the podcast for you today, and I think you'll know why shortly. So my guest today is he's one of my personal strategy clients at Brand Builders Group. His name is Danny Bader. He is a keynote speaker. He's an author of 3 books. And he's a really incredible individual. And Danny actually is one of the very small group of people on this earth who have actually died and come back to life. So he'll share more of his story on the podcast today. But when he was 28, he died and was dead for, I believe, 8 minutes, and had quite an experience in that process, and then came back to life. And his journey since then has influenced so much of what he teaches as a speaker, as a facilitator. And it's been so cool to get to know him. He and I have been working together for close to a year now. And just to get to know him, I've learned so much from him in the process of working with him on his brand and on his business. And I wanted to bring him on the show because I don't know about you, but for me, it's so easy to get caught up in just the little stuff throughout the day as we build our businesses and, are stuck in traffic and all the life stuff, right, that we complain about. And I think our perspective can get so out of whack of what actually matters. And Danny has developed just this incredible curriculum, framework, teaching that he shares on the podcast today about if you are someone who is feeling any amount of stuck, of feeling any amount of lack of vision for where you're going next, any amount of frustration for where you are in life, or maybe you're doing great, but you want to get to the next level. Danny's cultivated these 5 principles that he calls the jackrabbit principles, and I'll tell more of the story of that on the podcast, but you can use them to literally get unstuck and develop and accomplish any goal that you're going after in your life. And so I just want to encourage you on your journey. We all have seasons of ups and downs and everything in between. I have them all myself. But the more that I can incorporate some of these principles that Danny teaches, the more I grow, the more I learn along the way, and the more fun it is, and the more I get unstuck fast out of the stuff that doesn't matter and could hold me back. And I really want the same for you. So I think this is such a gift of having Danny's teachings on the podcast today. I will say there's some language. So if you have kids, or you don't want to listen to a podcast with any sort of language, adult language, then that's fine. This is probably not the episode for you, but for everybody else, you are going to I think you're going to love connecting with Danny. You're going to want to connect with him on social, read his books, find out more about what he's doing, because he is really he has the perspective that most of us don't, of someone who has died and come back to life, and he's here to share what he's learned. So I can't wait for you to get to learn from Danny. And with that, let's go ahead and get right into the episode. Danny, it is such a blessing and such an honor to have you on the podcast. I mean, I talked in the intro just about how much I've learned from you about really life in general over the past year or so that we've been working together.
Right.
And I'm so excited to share your insights with my audience. And you've just been such a gift in my life getting to know you. And I'm really, really excited to have you on the show today. So thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Elyse. And I feel the same way about you.
Oh.
You know that.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you, my friend. Well, so I want to kind of get into some of your backstory to start. And I think you've had a very rare experience. I think you said like 5% of the population can relate to having this. And I don't know if you would call it a gift or an experience or what, but you've had this experience of having a near-death experience, of dying and coming back to life. And I understand that it's really shaped who you are and a lot of what you teach today in your books, in your keynotes. Can you kind of take us back to just your story and talk about how that experience has impacted and shaped your message and who you are today?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Elyse. Yeah, I don't know if we call it an experience, an event, a gift. I certainly think it's a gift for me. So yeah, when I was almost 29 years of age, I had graduated college, took some sales jobs that I didn't necessarily like. And I'd lived in Aspen, Colorado, tending bars. So I'm trying to find myself and go through that thing that many people go through. I remember my mom would always call and say, well, Daniel, did you find yourself yet? And I would be, no, Mom, but it's, 2 feet of fresh powder yesterday. So we'll keep looking here. At any rate, when I was 28, I was working for 2 brothers that had a roofing company, and I was tending bar in the evening, a couple of days of construction. And one day, one of the brothers and myself lowered a ladder, and we thought we were going to miss an electric line that had 8,000 to 10,000 volts of electricity in there. And we didn't. We hit it by about a quarter of an inch, and that electricity traveled down the metal ladder, and it went into both of us. It went into me, and it went into my friend Bruce, and we both died, is the best way to describe it. I came back. Bruce didn't that day. He was a wonderful man, brother, husband, son, just a great guy, 3 kids and a wonderful wife. And, they had their journey, and thankfully they have lived a really strong life, after that tragedy of losing him. When I came back, then I was trying to figure a whole lot of things out, as you can imagine. I blamed myself a lot for Bruce's death, because I had a feeling we might be close and I should have stopped, and all that survivor's guilt things that you go through. So that was in July, the accident. And then in October, I had an awful lot of people around that were ready to help me. I'm one of 8 kids. I have a sister and 6 brothers, and my mom and dad still alive, thankfully, and friends, tons of people. But you know how sometimes we go through these tough times and you don't let people in because you want to put on the facade that you're strong and you're going to get through this. And, there's a reason for this, and all those kind of cliche things that people say, and they don't mean anything bad by them. So in October, then I go to the Outer Banks of North Carolina. And my mom says to me, why are you going down there? It's desolate. It's all closed up. Well, I was pretty desperate. I was at the end of that, proverbial rope, so much depression, drinking way too much for all the wrong reasons. And I was going down there with the intention of buying a hose that I was going to put into the tailpipe of my Jeep and drive onto the beach. And that would be the end of it, because I kind of was just hurting so bad. So that's the story, in a nutshell. It's the one I wrote about in that first book, Back from Heaven's Front Porch.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what I think, just for somebody who hasn't read the book or doesn't know your story yet, so you went down there with the intention of ending it. What happened? What changed for you?
Well, there were 2 main things that happened. Number one, I think it was this, I know it was the stillness down there. It's kind of funny as I reflect on it. My mom said, why are you going there? It's so quiet. It's desolate. And that's why I was going, right? Nobody knew me. I could do this and nobody would be around. They wouldn't find me or anything. And I'm convinced that it was in that stillness there that I heard something, right? Not with these, but more hearing and hear. And for me, it was the Holy Spirit working. It's my belief in God. Some people will call it, Mel Robbins calls it inner wisdom, I think. Some people call it universal consciousness, whatever it might be. But when I got out of the busyness of my situation and the world, that's where I heard what I needed to hear. And then I think it clicked for me. I was probably there 2 days. I'd been down there 2 days. I had gone into this little hardware store that sold everything from beach chairs to hoses to sunglasses, those old little beach shops. And I was looking at the hoses, and, it's crazy. I'm thinking about, okay, what color should I get? How long should it be? The crazy thoughts you have at this desperate time. And a woman kind of came by the aisle and spooked me. I didn't see her. And she said, hello. And I said, oh, hello. And it kind of snapped me out of, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm looking at a hose here. I don't know if I want to do this. Yeah. So I went out and got drunk, which was, that's always a good thing to do, right? When you're a little confused.
Hey, yeah. It's better than buying a hose.
Oh my God. Yeah. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. Trust me. Yeah. You wake up with a new hangover in the same place. Is what I've gleaned from that. But at any rate, I've got a really good buzz going, and I'm walking back to my motel, and, seashell parking lots, North Carolina, girl, the Outer Banks. Yeah. And I look over and I see this phone booth on the corner of the parking lot. The red and the glass little square. Like when I talk with younger kids and I say phone booth, they're like, what is a phone booth?
No idea.
Yeah. And I'm like, well, it's this big box you would go in and call somebody. And they're like, is that like FaceTime? I'm like, no, it's not like yeah, put money into this and money. And they go, Venmo? I'm like, no, like nickels, dimes, quarters. And they're laughing, going, what, nickels, dimes? Who uses them anymore? So anyhow, and I don't remember seeing the phone booth when I pulled in there initially. And I was there for 2 days, and it was a small little motel. So it's kind of like this divine intervention or something.
Yeah.
So I go into the phone booth and I call my mom, and she says to me, you know, when are you coming? First 30 seconds of the call, she said, when are you coming home? We can't wait to see you. And I had a lump, Elyse, in my throat. You and I have talked about this. You know, one of those lumps you get in your throat where you are like, man, I can't breathe. I can't talk. I can't cry. I don't know what's going on. And I finally got, and I, you know, through that, and I said, yeah, I love you too, Mom. I'll be home in a day or two. And I walked out of the phone booth, and I'm walking back to the motel room, and the little voice in my head that we all have, some of us have multiple characters up there. The little voice in my head said, I wonder what it's going to be like when I get better.
Mm.
And that was the first time, at least from July 28th until October, when I started to think about the future, number one, and a positive future. So for me, that was the birth for me of the importance of this principle that I talk about called developing vision, right? The ability for us to imagine what needs to be real. And it's a really, really powerful principle that I offer to people, you know, in my talks, in my workshops, and in my writing.
Gosh, your story, it doesn't matter how many times I hear it, it gives me chills every single time. And thank God for the divine intervention and all of that, and that you're here today. Because I know for me and for everyone listening, it's like, we just learned so much from hearing, just from absorbing your story and your information. So thank you for that. And I think, you know, you talk about these principles that you've developed as a result of a lot of what happened to you in your life experience. And I'd love if we could get into those a little bit. So you've got this methodology you call the jackrabbit
Sure.
principles. And I think for anyone who's listening, you know, we all go through different seasons in our entrepreneurial journey or in our business journey and life journey. And sometimes it seems like everything is cranking along and going smoothly and we're on top of the world.
Yeah.
And then other times it's the total opposite. And I've been there myself, where it feels like,
Yes.
oh, I'm stuck. Nothing I'm doing feels right. I have no idea where
Yeah,
I'm
it's
going.
if it's the seasons, it's that freaking blizzard, right?
Yeah,
I mean, we're
it's a
outside and the
blizzard.
wind is coming and our fingers are cold, and
Yeah,
it's just like, oh my gosh, can't see anything.
yeah.
Yeah, just needs some warmth. Yeah.
It's yeah, and it sucks in the moment. It always serves you. I know it's all, even if you know in the moment that, okay, I'm being formed, I'm being shaped, there's an opportunity here for something new. It doesn't change the fact that it feels like it sucks. So
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I love these principles
Yeah.
just to help any of us who are looking to up level our business and our lives. Can you kind of talk us through what they are, what each one means, and how we can start utilizing them?
Yeah, absolutely. So they came up, just a little backstory. You know, I went to the coaching school in Santa Barbara in 2006 and 7, the Hudson Institute, great bunch of people out there. And at the end of that coaching program, you had to do a project, right? So you could write a paper, a thesis, whatever. And they said you could do a model. So, you know, I'm thinking of Stephen Covey, 7 Habits, you know, Jack Canfield, Sales Success. So I'm starting to think about models that I have seen before. And I'm in my 30s then. And, you know, it's probably 10 years. I'm married. I've got 2 kids working in corporate America. And I thought, what principles have I applied in my life since I was 28 and had that traumatic accident and was on the verge of ending it? What have I watched other people apply and go, you know, look at Elyse. I like what she's doing there. Oh, them too. What would I call it? So I really distilled the principles that served me well back from that journey. Not just served me well, but also what I have observed in other people. And there are 5 principles. They're develop vision, be still, know thyself, seek support, and evolve. And it's a circular model. You've seen it before. So there's not like, this is the first one, this is the second, this is the third. In working with the people, I say, hey, listen, what lands for you? Which one do you think you need to kind of lean into and work with for a little bit now? So develop vision is really the ability for us to imagine what needs to be real. And it's really, really powerful when you're in a shitty place. You know, when you're stuck, when you're graduating from college and you're like, I have no idea what I need to do. When you're an entrepreneur and you're trying to take your brand to the next level. When you're getting out of a relationship, you're going through a divorce, the loss of a loved one. Life, I think, is just transitions. And vision is really, really important, because when you're in the transition, it's not the ability to ignore where you are and the reality of the situation sometimes when it's not so good. But it's to say, okay, this is what I'm dealing with right now. What's it going to be like when I'm not? Because then there's a huge shift in our energy and our I talk about hope and trust. I don't deal on hope too much, but it's the ability to trust that we can create this and we can move through it. So develop vision is the first one. And it came out of me walking out of the phone booth and saying, what's it going to be like when I get better again? And then I think when we develop vision and you're working on that, you really got to make sure that you practice and harness some stillness. So it's the journaling, it's the meditation, it's the breathing exercises that I think are so powerful because they train our brain to create a little space between thought and then action, which is really powerful, right? We act from our thoughts and our emotions. I get that. But a lot of times in the real world, here comes this thought or this emotion, and we're taking an action in a moment, in an instant. And we're going, oh man, I didn't mean to say that. I didn't mean to do that. And it's not producing the outcomes that we want. And then I think as well with the stillness, you and I have talked about the morning hours. I call them the 0 hours. So military time, right? 0500, 0600, 07. What are you doing in those magical hours, in the morning? I like nothing better to come in my office. I got about 7 candles around here, make my coffee. First thing I do is I grab my journal right off the shelf. I travel with it and just go, okay, where are you? What's going on for you right now? And sometimes it's moving through tough times. And sometimes it's writing about all the exciting things that are coming to fruition. And then after stillness, you got to know yourself. Lots of ways to do that. Your talents and your strengths, your purpose, your values. I just did an exercise last week with some leaders at Marriott. What do you really value? Circle them. Where are you on a scale of 1 to 5 in those values in terms of living into them? It's great exercise for people. And they look and they go, man, I haven't done this in years, if they've ever even done it. And then in terms of knowing yourself, it's really, and you have helped me on this tremendously. It's the ability to really know our beliefs that we have about our past, about our present situation, the belief and the mindset that we have about creating what we're up to creating. Because you could have a beautiful vision. I could write a vision about how Danny Bader is going to have 1 million followers, and then he's going to come out with these books, and one's going to get made into a movie starring Jennifer Aniston and all this kind of stuff. So if anybody knows Jen, we have a role for her.
Hook a man up.
Hook him up. But it's just really monitoring, your thoughts and your mindsets to make sure that, not that you don't have crappy thoughts, because we all have them. It's about not letting them win. So it's the ability to have that radar up there that goes, wait a minute, these thoughts are not serving me well right now. How can I hold some useful ones, right? The acronym you and I hold useful thoughts. So it's the ability just to catch yourself and kind of say, okay, who would I be without these crappy thoughts? Oh, I could be the person that's going to create what we want to create for ourselves. And then, so I thank you for that, because you have helped me an awful lot to believe in myself a little bit more.
It's been my pleasure. It's been my pleasure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and if we can even just pause on that one, because I think that's something for myself, for all of us, like when we stop and pay attention to the thoughts that are running our mind. And I've read something, it's like, we think 90% of the thoughts that we think are the same every single day. And if we're not aware of it, if we're not paying attention to it, then we stay on autopilot. Right. So, I love that. I think just the awareness and like that morning time and doing the journaling, do you use that to help uncover some of the thoughts that are that are holding you back?
Yeah, absolutely. I do. Absolutely. I do. And then I've named, some of the people that may have been with me, if they listen to this, I kind of have a guy that has all these thoughts. And when I'm thinking these, I give them a name. Like he showed up with these thoughts, and I call him ST, and it stands for shitty thoughts. And if you're out there and you're going, oh, I don't like that language, I don't curse, that's okay. I get it. And I don't mean to offend, but for me, it's just the ability. It's my strategy to go, wait a minute, ST's here. This is not going to serve me well. I've been down this road before. How else could I think about this? What could I go read right now that's going to help me shift this? Could I text Elyse real quick and she can help me shift this? Can I watch a YouTube or a TED talk with somebody? Can I journal? So again, it's not about not having those negative thoughts or the ones that are not useful. You got to get really good at catching yourself. And that's just awareness. I remember Pam McLean, who's the CEO of the Hudson Institute, wonderful lady, wonderful coach, brilliant coach. She said, awareness precedes change. It's that simple. So how can you up your awareness to how you're thinking, because you know that's going to put you in a state of emotions and things, and then that's where you'll act from.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's pretty cool. I still have a lot of work to do there, but I have the equation figured out. Now it's just
Yeah. And I
applying
think,
it more consistently.
yeah, well, and maybe we get into this in a little bit, because I think it's been a part of our conversations, and it's so true too. It's just like, every time you up level and go for something bigger,
Right.
ST shows up again, sometimes in a
Oh
different
yeah.
way, in a bigger way, right? But I
Oh
love
yeah.
I love just giving it a name, because I think it takes away the power,
Hmm.
which is so powerful. So um,
Absolutely.
this
And it's
is
got a playful aspect to it for me as well. You know,
Mhm.
it's kind of like playful. It's not so, you know, you don't take yourself so seriously. You know, when he shows up, I'm like, oh, ST. I'm like, oh, hey, brother, what's happening? I figured you'd be up. Yeah, I haven't seen you in a couple days, so yeah.
Oh my God. I feel like we need a caricature of ST.
Oh
We
yeah.
need some sort of a visual, like a cartoon type of character. This is
Yeah, sometimes he shows up in all different ways, man. Sometimes he's like the old stereotype of the sleazy, you know, the sleazy car salesman.
Oh man.
Sometimes he shows up like this big muscular dude that's going to beat the crap out of me, and yeah, all depends, I suppose.
It's great. It's great. I love it. So we talked about, so the 5 principles: develop vision, stillness, know yourself. What's the next one out of the principles?
Seek support.
Mm,
Flat out, man. I was going through that difficult time, and there was a ton of people that could help me, and I did not let them in. You know, and I went to 1 or 2 psychiatrists to try to help me unravel things, and I didn't connect with them. So I'm like, they don't work. They don't work. And then, you know, I went to priests because, you know, my faith is strong, and that still wasn't working. And then I finally, you know, I kind of went back to it. My mom said, you got to talk to somebody here. And I met this guy. It was really cool. He was a Jewish psychiatrist down in Philadelphia. He looked exactly like Steven Spielberg at the time. And, you know, he knew my faith was important to me, even though it was different than his. And something about this guy, he and I just clicked. And that was kind of where I started to get some traction and get back into the world, you know?
mm, wow.
Yeah, you
Wow.
got to seek support.
Yeah, which I think today, maybe more than ever, I don't know, I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, but I think today people can feel, it's like we feel so connected, but yet so isolated at the same time.
Hmm.
So, how does somebody, I mean, I guess it's just you reach out to your network, you look for support groups, but any suggestions for someone who feels like either they're isolated and like behind their computer all day long, or maybe their ego is getting in the way of them seeking support? Like, how can we get past that?
Yeah, I think we all have people in our lives that we love and they love us. And
Mhm.
it's just a matter of really slowing down and understanding that, you know, and sitting with them. An exercise I'll do is I'll say, hey, think about 5 people that you really love in your life, and they love you. And they'll challenge you, and you know, you battle a little bit, but ultimately you really love one another. And then, you know, raise your hand if you need to spend more time with them. And usually 90% of the hands go up, you know, so that's the ability to seek support.
Yeah.
So if they feel alone, really go deep and think, is there anybody out there who out there would be willing to support me a little bit? And I think if you ask the question and they would go, maybe, well, they would say to me, well, I don't know. I would just sit and I would go, well, what if you did know? And
Mm.
just let it settle, give them another chance. Um, then of course there's always, you know, people that you could go to, you know, from your church, if you follow any type of, you know, faith. There's somebody out there. Heck, go to my website and email me. I don't know how many times I've talked to people out of the blue. I remember a wonderful guy out in California, a gay man who lost his partner, and he happened to just find my book. And I think he Facebook messaged me at like 2 a.m. And we went on to have you know, a relationship probably for a month or two.
Mm.
Not formal, not coaching. You know, I didn't charge him. I had a couple phone calls with him, and he's a great guy, very resilient, and he's doing great now. You know,
Mm.
he's in another relationship. Everything's good. We check in from time to time. So when you're out there and you see people like us that are professing to support everybody on their journey, call us on it once in a while.
Yeah.
You know, if we really do, and it's not, you know, we're just not a bunch of bullshit trying to make a lot of money, call us on it. Now, you know, understand we're busy and all, but there's never a person, and I'm sure you're the same way, and Rory and some of these wonderful people, Lewis, like when you feel somebody's pain coming through a Facebook message or something, you got to stop and acknowledge them. I don't know how many times I've signed a book and sent it out. and said, hey, just read this, see what happens, and then let me know how you are. So you really have to do that. And then in terms of seeking support as well, understand that your head that you and I just talked about, there's a lot of support that you can get from your own thoughts. So if your brain is the hardware, which I say, what are you putting in there? You know what I mean? Are you watching the uplifting YouTube and TED Talks and good movies and reading good books? You know, you got to get some of that good stuff in there that starts to build the trust that you can move towards that vision. So it all begins with vision, right? IABWV. It all begins with vision. You got to get an idea and say, okay, this is where I'm headed. It sucks right now. This is what it's going to like when it doesn't suck. And oh yes, it's going to be a difficult journey. Yeah. And I can get there. And here's some of the things I need to do to get there.
Yeah, gosh, it's so good. And out of all, I mean, I love all of them. This is one that I think is, for me personally, I feel passionate about it because this is the area where I probably struggled the most for so many years. And I think for me, a lot of it was probably it was an ego issue. And I think as I look back on it, also part of it was feeling like, I don't want to inconvenience someone. You know, I don't want to impose, which comes down to obviously self-worth and not wanting to take up too much space or be in the way for somebody. And so this was something where I really had to learn that at the end of the day, it's like, people want to help you. They want to support you. And you can either let your ego get in the way and say, I'll figure it out on my own, but kind of look at where you are and look at, you know, are you where you want to be? And if you're not, a lot of times it comes down to this great principle of seeking support.
Yep.
Which even you and I were talking a little bit in the pre-chat about, just for entrepreneurs or business builders, the importance of seeking support in team and, you know, network and mentors. And so I don't know if you have any tips or ideas for people there, but I think as we go for something really big, it's really hard to do it on our own.
Yeah. It is. And I you know, a great tip for that, because as you build your business and, you know, you're always keeping an eye on cash flow and money, and it's, gosh, like, wow, this organization might be able to help me, but it's going to be 10 or 15, 20 grand. Whatever it might be. Gosh, I'd have to do this many talks or whatever. And I would encourage you, if you're having that resistance, to really have some conversations with some people. You know, the conversation, I remember the first one that I had with you was just great. I saw Rory on Lewis's podcast, and I'm like, wow, okay, it seems like a cool organization. I checked them out a little bit. You and I had a brand call. We talked about things. We connected right away, which was great. I'm like, okay, cool. This lady's great. She gets it. Then it's the whole justification of, gosh, it's a significant investment. But I'm telling you, in the past 11 months or since we've been working, so many more projects finished and moving towards being finished because of working with you, no question. And there would even be more if I had executed more, you know, but I still had some of that head stuff that I'm working through. So don't run away from that head stuff, you know. And thankfully, you know, you coached me through some of that, which I didn't expect from a branding, right? You're getting somebody to coach you on your branding. But when we identified some beliefs that weren't serving me well, I mean, I was just so thankful for it. I mean, I think one call, that's all we did. You know, you just coached me through that. And it's kind of like, you know, I'm sitting there going, shit, I write and teach about this and I can't do it myself.
It's hard to do for yourself. You can't.
But the other thing I would encourage people to trust is, you know, we're in this for service. I love to write. You love to get people to go, wow, you really helped me. That really helped me. Then we're on purpose. And at the same time, you know, I've got to pay for college tuitions, and I want to, you know, have some nicer things and not have debt and save for the future. So the shift for me is, what I'm finding is, the more I invest and seek support from professionals like you and you know, Carrie and LaShawn down at Of Course that are working on my online course, the more I'm doing that, the more I'm saying, wow, there's a lot more money coming in, you know, because you're meeting these people, you're changing, you're developing some products. So yeah, I would tell people, if you're on the fence with that, have some calls and go that way.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I'm going to clip out the little part where you were talking about how awesome I am and use it as a testimonial.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding, but
you know, I give you testimonial anytime, man. It was so good this week. We're eating pizza down there with Jason. It was great, man.
Yes, we got to meet up this week. That was awesome. That was so awesome. Good. But gosh, it's so true. And so I think probably for everyone listening in general, investing in themselves, they're investing in their business. But I know as you go to higher levels, and this has happened in my own business, like I'm investing in ways right now where I'm investing money I wouldn't make in a year previously. And it can feel scary,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, it's money is energy, right? I think we have to be a little bit more detached from kind of such a
Mm-hmm.
tight fist with it. And it's really about,
Yeah.
look, if I can, at the end, like for you, for me, growing, and for a lot of people listening, growing our brands and businesses, it's like you said, it's about service at the end of the day. And the more
It
people we
is.
can impact, the more lives get changed. And that requires an investment a lot of times.
Yep. That
Um,
is it. And I think if you're on to that point, I think when you're on that purpose of, what is your purpose? If it's to make money and sell a ton of books and all, I don't know that's going to drive you.
yeah.
Mine is very easy to connect with spirit, to support my family and friends and other people on this wonderful journey called life.
Mm,
Period. And the more that I evolve into that, evolve is the fifth principle of Jackrabbit, right? To undergo growth and change. The more I evolve and I come from that place, the more everything else just takes care of itself. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, so let's get into that one a little bit. The evolve. Tell us more about that and how we can be intentional about growing and evolving.
Yeah. Yeah. So a lot of times with people, and they say, okay, Danny, I understand the four principles here, develop vision, still. And I go through exercises of how to practice the principle. And then they say, how do I evolve, undergo continuous and gradual change and growth? I say, well, just keep doing those other four. Because when you think about it, as I continue to set big, bold visions for myself, I'm harnessing the power of stillness and evolving and tapping into that energy that we all have inside of us.
Mhm.
I mean, we all have it. When my body stopped, there was a part of me that didn't. I have my beliefs around it. You may have beliefs or not, but there was a part of me that left. I experienced the scene for a moment. I yelled to the other guy, who later told me that I didn't say anything. And he said he came to me and I was dead, eyes rolled back and everything.
Mm,
But as you continue to evolve in that stillness, there's an energy, there's a reservoir of resilience inside of us. And that's it. I do not believe that my heart, my lungs, and my brain make my body go.
wow.
I need them, but that ain't what makes Danny Bader go. And
Mm,
that little thing, that magical thing, that energy, soul, spirit, Yoda would say the force, the force. That's what it is. And when we can get to that more, man, does that bring a peace and a calm for us? And we realize that there's something bigger going on than just this human journey. We got
mm.
to be in it. We got to play the game, but it's not everything.
Gosh, I'm curious how you tap into that as you grow, because we've had a lot, like you've had so many up levels this year in your business, and you're doing big work, and you're going to continue to grow and do even bigger work. And we talked about it a little bit earlier on the show, but I think it's important to bring back up a lot
Mhm.
of conversations. And I think sometimes you hear the word like imposter syndrome show up, or
Oh yeah.
we're like, who am I to be sharing this message or launching this course, or to be the messenger of this.
Yeah.
And I think everyone has that happen at certain levels.
Right.
How do you tap into that force to
Yeah.
help you through those types of, we'll call them STs?
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I think it's just, I don't think it is just the awareness. You really have to crank up your awareness by
Mhm.
waking up in the morning and saying, okay, what am I going to think to myself? Leaving yourself a note. So when you came down to your office, leave yourself a note about what you're thinking or what are you working on today. Today, I'm going to be very aware of putting food in my body, what food I put in my body, what drink, what alcohol I put in my body. Today, I'm going to be very aware in how I interact with my wife and my children. Today, I'm going to be very aware. I mean, write yourself notes. You got to come and create that awareness. For me, tapping into the energy and the spirit is through my daily, the time in the morning, the peaceful time. It's through daily prayer. It's making sure that I'm being of service to other people, always being on the lookout. The other side of seek support is to be support, right?
Mm.
So how can I show up and be support for somebody else? And then just enjoying that life. Right before this, I went to a viewing for my friend's mom passed. She was 88, beautiful lady, known her for a long time, know her grandkids are friends with my kids. My wife, Lisa, and she's still there, but I came back because I wanted to do this with you, and I've got some other calls. But just when I was casket side and I put my hand on her, and I just looked at her face. She looked so loving and peaceful there in her body, and I know that part of her is gone. That just grounds me and allows me to connect with it. When
Wow.
I'm on the plane the other day, there's this beautiful little baby getting on, like 5 or 6 months old, maybe 8, and looking at me with these big eyes, mom's walking down. And I just looked, and the connection. And for me, that's just, I feel the connection that we all have for one another, as human beings. So I connected with the lady that passed today, and her husband's there, and he's 90, and he gave me a kiss, and I hugged him, and just a beautiful man. And then you see this little baby. We're all connected. You got to just slow down and be open to that.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And with all of this, like, I trust you because you've been to the other side. You've seen it, so when I look at, for myself, I think for a lot of us, we can get so caught up in the day to day, and it's like we put our attention on stuff that doesn't matter.
Right.
And obviously you're human too, so that I'm sure that happens for you some, but I
A
find a
couple
lot of times,
every now and again.
but there's a different energy to you that when people meet you in person, I think they experience, and I'm guessing a lot of that comes from just this perspective.
Yeah, I think so.
It's like the more I try to cultivate that every day, and I think the more we can all try to cultivate it every day, just the more grounded and grateful we feel.
Yeah.
And gosh, this is so good. I've got I want to ask you so many questions, and I also need to be mindful of
Yeah.
time.
Well, too, when we were talking, and I even sent you that shirt or whatever,
Mhm.
the awareness comes up in a lot of ways. So you and I have talked, and I have that line of t-shirts, Jackrabbit t-shirts,
Yeah.
and the one is DLDSM. DLDSM, it stands for Don't Let Dumb Shit Matter.
Yeah.
So people are like, I need that shirt to remind me, because t-shirts, a t-shirt is our first form of social media, right? Think
Oh,
about it.
I
When
never
we
thought
wear a
about it like that.
t-shirt, when we're 16 or 17 with a peace sign or Nike or whatever, that's telling you who we are. Now we're doing it through Facebook and Insta and everything else. But yeah, don't let the dumb shit matter, man. Just yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
focus on the bigger connection.
It's so good. One question I wanted to ask you as we start to wrap up here is, a lot of your brand that you've rebranded with this back to life.
Yeah.
You've got your podcast, you've got your book being rebranded in this way. Talk to us, and so I want to tell people more about that in a minute, but talk to us about, you speak to the difference between just, what is it, merely just living and being back to life. I'm probably butchering this now, sorry,
No, you're
but
not. No, you're not. You got
just
it.
living
Yeah.
and being alive. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So there's a character in the Back from Heaven's Front Porch book, which will be second edition coming out, and new title. It'll be Back to Life.
Mhm.
And there's a character in there, Paul, that Jake is my character in the book, kind of. So the story's fictionalized, but very much based on a true story. And Paul talks to Jake and says there's a hell of a difference between living and just being alive.
Mm.
And as I reflected on that, when I came back from my accident, I was living. My heart, my lungs, everything was working again, but I wasn't alive. And alive is where you're connecting with that universal force, that energy, that God, that spirit. That's when we're alive. And there is a heck of a difference from that. So, the back to life, and you helped me with this when you said, okay, what's your statement, right? Your brand positioning statement. What makes you unique? What problem are you solving? I was kind of all over the place. And I don't know that the problem, do I solve a problem or do I support people on their journey? It's almost the same thing, right? So if they have a problem, you're supporting them. So again, it's that shift. But the back to life for me is, I came back to life literally. And you say it was a gift. It's kind of crazy to say this, but I almost wish everybody had experienced that. We would not have any of the bullshit in the world
I'm
that we
sure.
have right now, man.
I'm
We would
sure.
have very little. I mean, people would have food, people would have clean water, people would have, if everybody had a taste of, oh shit, I'm dead. Oh wait, now I'm back. We're looking at things a little bit differently,
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird to say you would wish that on somebody. So I came back to life literally, but here's the thing, and you and I have talked about this, 5% of the people claim to have a near-death experience. When you wake up today, when you woke up, anybody that's listening, when you opened your eyes today, if you're blessed with sight, and you put your feet on the ground, if you're blessed with mobility, and even if you're not, when you woke up, you came back to life,
Yeah.
in essence, right? I mean, I'm alive 20,500 days now. minus that little 8-minute trip that I took to the other side. But that's the thing. Every day when you come back to life, 2 questions. What am I up to creating in my life right now for me and my people and my business and my team? And how am I going about doing it? And how is the process, right? So how is your mindset, your belief, your actions, your ability to take actions, your resiliency? What is the vision as to what you're creating? Now, asking those questions is pretty powerful, way more powerful when you answer them. Because our answers, right, elicit an emotion. And the emotion is where we act from. We don't act from logic. Very, very rarely. I mean, think about it. If we act from logic, everybody would be healthy and good shape. They'd have money saved. We don't. We act from that emotion. So as you have helped me and Carrie and LaShawn and all put together this course where we took the Jackrabbit principles now and we put it in, I shot a whole bunch of video. We put it into an online course. There's a tremendous amount of questions about all these principles. What are you up to in life? And how are you going about creating that? And it's our trust that as people answer these questions, there's that kind of little discomfort down here, which is an emotion, which is going to move them to action. Or there's a tremendous excitement and possibility that'll move them to action. So everybody goes, yeah, change the questions, change your life. It's a book I read. It's a very, very good one. But it's not just the questions, it's the answers.
Wow.
That's what brings it out for you. Don't take yourself so seriously, right? It's okay. We're all on this journey together. It's perfect the way it is. And, sometimes it's harder, but it's just take a deep breath, find somebody to give you a hug, figure out where you're headed and what you're creating, and then just always keep an eye on your process a little bit.
Yeah. Danny, this is, I think, one of, if not the most important conversation I've ever had on this podcast. So thank you so much for your wisdom.
I love you.
Yeah, I love you too. This is incredible. Thank you. Tell us how we can connect with you. Tell us about your course that you've got coming out, your books, because I know people are going to want, and your podcast. I know people are going to want to learn more and soak up more Danny Bader wisdom. So please tell us all the things.
Yeah, thank you for that. The best place to go would be my website is just dannybader.com. And through there, you can click up top, go to my blog. They're all there. You can subscribe through any channel that you listen to. My podcast is there. The online course is almost finished. It's called Back to Life. And it will probably be somewhere in the neighborhood around a 6 to 8 hour course for you. Those of you that will take it, that will really invest in it. The books are out on Amazon. Back from Heaven's Front Porch is the first one. And then the second one is Abraham's Diner. And that's just a short little, if you're a stressed out executive and you're overwhelmed and you feel like you're out of balance and email and meetings and all that stuff, you want to go in there and meet a guy named Abraham that owns a little diner in Orange County. He'll set you straight.
Love it. And
then the third one that I put out last year was titled, I Met Jesus for a Miller Lite. And people will sometimes say to me, oh my gosh, it's, I met Jesus for a Miller Lite. They'll go, is that religious? It says Jesus on it. And I'll go, yeah. And it says Miller Lite too. So just relax.
Simmer down. They balance each other out.
Plus Jesus was a wine guy, right? We all know he was a wine guy. But that book's the story about a young man named Michael, and he's a running back in the NFL, and he's All-American in college, and he gets out, and he's type A, so he's going to play 12 years, retire, and he gets knocked out after 2 or 3 years with concussions. So now his purpose is kind of spinning, and his best friend's wife is young, and she's suffering cancer. So it's just a story of people and how do they move through resilience, So when we co-brand the first book, it'll be Back to Life, The Path of Resilience. And that's really what I believe I can show up and offer people.
Yeah. Well, you certainly can, and you have today. So this has been such a gift to me, and I know to everyone listening. So Danny, thank you again just for your wisdom, thank you for coming back and sharing with us all of this that you've learned. And I think if we can just take one little thing that we learned from you today, we will have more peace. We will have more resilience. We will feel more alive every day as we get up and go about our lives. And I'm just so grateful for that. So thank you.
Thank you, Elyse. I'm grateful for you and everybody at Brand Builders. It's been a wonderful year, and I look forward to the future.
Looking forward to it.
I wish everybody out there the best too.